let me welcome my first guest. He is the president, yes, another president. He is the president of Pan Trinbago. Often sought, some folks say he is elusive. I did not find him that elusive. It seemed to me it was only a case of a matter of time before I am ready to speak. And I think he's ready to speak. Let me first of all welcome Mr. Diaz, the president of Pan Trinbago. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here this morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world.
It is good to see you because your health is something that came into question. Somebody said they turned up the pressure cooker and the heart went like, okay, enough of this. But you look so good this morning. It is good to see you.
Well, up to yesterday, I had a visit to the doctor to check up. I had a checkup yesterday. Decently medical, and he say come back to him about 2 months' time, and I keep check on what he has to say.
Well, we, the media, we've been praying for you very hard. I'm not too sure it's about you just getting better, about us getting a chance to drill you.
Well, that is life, because that goes with the territory.
That goes with the territory. Good to have you here. Diaz, the president of Pan Trinbago. Pan Trinbago, as you know, was formed in 1971, but the steelman movement has been organized since 1950. Pan Trinbago's
1949.
49, right? 49, so I just jumped 1 year ahead. Pan Trinbago's predecessor was the National Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Pan Trinbago, as you know, is a cultural organization which was incorporated by an act of parliament in 1986. So, Mr. Diaz, it is good to have you here. I laid that foundation because there are a number of questions we will discuss this morning. Let me just put it before our listeners that we are very clear. There are a couple of issues that you would like to know about. They are sub judice, which means they're in the courts. If they're in the courts, of course, my guest will be constrained not to go down that direction. But you know me, I'll keep plugging still anyway. All right, Mr. Diaz, let us start, for instance, by asking the first question about Pan Trinbago. What are the annual yearly events mandated for Pan Trinbago that Pan Trinbago carries out? Make that clear for us, please.
I just want to make it clear that our events for this panorama, or the main event, the feature event of the organization, which began in 1963 by past President George Goddard. And after that, we had the festival. They had begun before 1963 to go biannually every 2 years. And we have continued that until 2013. We had other shows that we tried to develop, and I was just going to a little brief in terms of when our past presidents. I'm the 16th president of the Steelman Association, and I take hats off from Arnon Smith, Owen Serrett, and Mr. Patrick Arnold. They all tried in their own way to help uplift the Steelman movement, and we did events outside of that. Outside of that, we had the Champs of Concert that was started way back in 30 years ago by Selwyn Taradat. I remember when Selwyn Taradat came to Mr. Arnon Smith. And there was a little discussion, and Arnon said, "Oh, gosh, Taro, let me go ahead." And he said, "This is something that is good for the nation. We'll incorporate all the winners of Carnival. And not only steel band people, Mass, Pan, Calypso, and all these things. We are the only organization that did that for 30 years. Where we get money, we rarely get funding for that, because they most fund the panorama, the steel bands, and so on. And this went on for a couple of years until this year we had to cancel yesterday's event. Other events that we have planned during the course of the year, when I came on board, I remember we had very little things after Carnival. So we said we'll do certain things in the year after that and try to encourage steel bands on the road. There was no discussion and dialogue for bands on the road. We started it off under Mr. Serrett, that is Owen Serrett. And he heard and he said, well, we'll try different things. So we had Carnival on the night, steel band explosion, where we brought out the bands in the nights because the bands were not being heard on the streets in Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. And at that time, we developed that. We ran out of funding. We got funding from Carib, Coca-Cola, and these companies, Fernandez, Mr. Nicky Innes, and others. They came on board and helped us for about 5 or 6 years straight. After that, things changed, and the people fall aside. They had a whole mission behind the steel band movement at that time. So people who came on board after didn't have that, assistance to be given to us. But we didn't go and make no public announcements. What we did, we came up with another area, and this is events, which was Groovy Soccer competition. We hear steel bands play today Groovy Soccer. The champions band play this year Groovy, the Maximus Dan. Last year was 5-Star Keel. So it began to change with our own tune. But we, for the past 4 years, we had not last year, but before that, we had Carnival Monday Night Groovy Soccer competition. And it went across the country. I have figures here where we got help. At that time, from the Sports and Culture Fund, that's under the past administration. In the first year, just showing this is copies we had to send to Sports and Culture Fund, telling them how much money the bands were getting, and all the bands who participated, we have to send it in to the Sports and Culture Fund to report how much money they give us.
We will be getting to a lot more detail on that whole bookkeeping aspect of it. I see that you're all prepared, and I'm not surprised. So essentially, Champion Concert is one of the reasons that prompted me to inquire as to the annual events of Pan Trinbago, because this year there is no Champs in Concert. Our understanding is that the funds are not in your hands and you don't want to commit the organization. You are right here. Make clear for us, please.
Yes, I had to state that very clearly. I remember we had the Music Festival of 2013. We did receive the $3 million that we had approval for at the time under the past government. And when we went to the former minister, he said, he gave us a lot of, I don't want to go down that road in terms of negative towards a minister. But we didn't receive the money. We had to go and borrow the money. And that's some of the expenses that I will talk about later. And that money of the $3 million we never received. And the Panmen just say, if only I had the thing, don't keep it. So I remember that, and I say, listen, after we sign contracts have been signed to pay every artist that participate in Champs of Steel Plus in our organization. We help Mass Calypso, King and Queens of Carnival. Even Marshall Montano got $100,000 for appearing there. We paid him because he was the soca monarch. And you can't have an artist. So we maintain those responsibilities. But today now, we don't have the resources. We don't have our funds. How am I going to Monday morning to tell them, well, I ain't get from government and I'm waiting on the NCC to pay it? It can't work like that. We approached the chairman of the NCC. Until Carnival Friday, I went to his office and asked, what is my position with Champs? He said, well, you have these facilities free. I said, what about the money? He said, well, I have no money. And we had meetings prior to that. So people must understand, if we don't have the funds, we cannot commit. They cannot commit.
I wanted to start this from the ground up, like I like to do, which was to start with the panists, but you decided to get to the middle of the tree, so I'm going to go straight to the middle of the tree. We're talking about finances here. The finances. Let's talk about the subventions that Pan Trinbago receives from the government, the period in which you receive it, and for what reason you have not received it to the best of your understanding that led you into this reported, according to audited figures, $31 million debt. Let's talk about that. Talk about the subventions, please.
I want to bring to you this. I bring copies. I will not leave it with you because this is one copy. Panmen Foster, 30th of June 2014. That's audited financial statements. And 2015, audited financial statements. Do not copy my copies, please.
No, we shan't.
And 2016, audited financial statements. Now, it is said that we do not respond. I have to respond to figures inside of it. So so I will show you. That is
I see that. I see all three, listeners, just that you're very clear. All three statements were handed to me. Yes.
The auditors are Panel Foster. And I want to read in the Constitution. This is the Constitution of Pan Trinbago. The Constitution of Pan Trinbago, 1986. And it says, Article 11, Finance. The association shall maintain a system of financial accounting conducive of its programs and activities, and shall have the right and power to raise funds for its programs and activities. 2, the treasurer shall have the responsibility for the overall finances accounting systems of the association, but shall be subject to the authority of the president, who shall have the power to supervise and give directives to proper functionings of same. The accounts of the association shall be audited annually, which is what I showed here, and I want to go back as far as Arnim Smith. Owen said, Patrick Arnold, even before that under Sidney Gullop, we have to audit, submit to government, otherwise you don't get funding for the next year.
Let's reiterate that just for clarity. You are mandated to have these audits done, and the only way you get these subventions or assistance from government is if, in fact, you provide your reports.
We provide your reports.
So you have been, in order that you have been receiving these subventions, you have been submitting these reports.
That's right. And further to this, the accounts of the association shall be audited annually by such auditors or auditors for the time being of the association that has been appointed by the general body. So the general body have to appoint the auditors, not the executive. And the fiscal year of the association shall run from the 1st of July to the 30th of June. So if you watch all these audited statements, on the 30th of June is the end of the financial year. And the financial year starts the 1st of July. So it's run, the reason why it is done like that, to coincide after we pass our audit, it's then submitted to government at the fiscal year when government had this audit. Now, for the new year, it was changed when the budget was supposed to be read. It was later down in October. So we had this thing prepared so that audit finished by the last Sunday of any year. We have to submit our audited financial statements. So when you finish submit that, it was changed just after the new administration came into September, brought forward. But that, there's just some month in between. So that was done, and by way of the Constitution, Pan Trinbago Executive have and must comply with the Constitution. Bring it before the membership, and after it is passed of the membership, who question the auditors, who question the finances, and then it go forward.
The Constitution you refer to is the Constitution of Pan Trinbago.
Yes.
The voice that you're hearing is that of Keith Diaz. He's the president of Pan Trinbago. We are going through a number of issues here, so occasionally we may truncate or do a little jump, but I will try to keep the continuity inside of there so that we can all follow what we're talking about. What he just referred to is the report that Pan Trinbago has been derelict in providing in having the audits done and providing the report to the ministry. He is making clear that they must supply this to the ministry in order to get their subventions. They've been getting that. That is the situation. There is a divide here that's going on because on the one hand, we hear that folks have not been receiving. You say that you've been giving. So somebody is misinformed or some information is misplaced.
Well, let me just reiterate. We had, in my administration, dealing with government, we had 9 permanent secretaries. 1 year they moved from the 18th floor to the 20th floor. And next thing, and they have documents. A new PS comes. Say, could you send us the documents? We send it over. Again. They send it over. A new PS comes. Could you send over the document? We send it back. We always have copies to send it to them. And if, as I said, the new PS come, we're not knocking no permanent secretary in town, We had dialogue. We have to sit with them, We have to go through government funds, right? Even was making the point with the Sports and Culture Fund. Look at here. This is a letter to the Sports and Culture. We have to submit to them our outstandings. And every single steel band that participates in Panorama or the thing we have to give them the amount of money that is being spent. Look at this sheet here.
Submitted in July 26th, the last report we referred to.
So we have to submit these things to government, especially when they give you funding.
So you have been, suffice it to say, you have been supplying these things, and in some cases repeatedly, for the want of the new PS making the statement. I don't know where it is. Send it to me.
I didn't say the new PS make the statement.
Not this last PS, but you say because of the change of permanent secretaries.
Yeah, I don't know where it is in the ministry. I don't work there. I don't know what we do.
Gotcha. All right.
I just want to clear another area, right? I heard the minister making a statement that where 87 million gone. Just let me give you 1 year. 2014, $18,662,958 was given to prize money for steel bands.
And what year is this?
That is 2014.
2014.
Right. $8,923 were given to steel band checks. That is the $1,000 we are clamoring about. Now, that is a submission of money that was given to the steel bands. Now, when people say they don't know where the money going, 18 and 9 is how much?
18 and 9, 17, yes.
Right. You have in professional fees $1.1 million. Security, that is to see about the panorama, $1.4 million. Stage management, Tobago, 1.278 million. Right? Transportation. No, transportation is 1.278. That's a transfer the bands from their respective venues to the event. And you have, this, the assistance of Pan on the road. All these things are submitted by the auditors. And they come and go through your books and present it to the membership. And we then submit after. So to hear somebody making a statement, say, where the money going? Like somebody in Pan Trinbago take the money and go with it.
There is the money is accounted for, is what you're saying. All right, we can spend a lot of time in the weeds there, but there are so many questions for you, Keith Diaz, that I'm going to accept it that you have been submitting your reports because you showed me the reports. The reports have been there. Otherwise, had they not been there, you would not have been getting your subventions.
Yes.
That speaks for itself. All right, $31 million. You said $31 million sounds like a huge figure after the audited reports, but folks are misunderstanding how we arrive at that figure and how easily explainable it is. Explain for me, please.
As I mentioned before, we didn't receive monies from the previous. A lot of things took place under the last government, which I commend them, and have some areas where I voice my dissatisfaction. One of them was we didn't receive $3.4 million, which was for the festival in 2013. That was 2014. We had to go to the banks and borrow the money and pay the Panmen. We never received that money.
Just let our listeners be very clear. This festival you're talking about is the International Pan Festival?
No.
Which one is this?
The music festival.
The music festival, got you. Okay.
Right. Then we had the International Pan. It was supposed to be in 2014. The minister said, that is a former minister, give him credit because he decided to accept it and if he could push it back another year. Cabinet, I had to go and sit in cabinet under the UNC government. And they appointed 5 ministers. Our budget towards the International Panorama Conference was $32 million. When they left office, we only got $13 million. $13 million was what we got. And there was outstanding. So we were faced with a deficit of $9.7 million. So 9.7, 13.4, how much you get there? At the end of the financial year, which is 30th of June 2016, you had we didn't receive the monies for the full allocation of funding from the government for Panorama 2016. Now, if you have your accounts, anybody who into accounts will know that on the 1st of July 2016, we received the money from the minister, on the 20th of October 2016. But that's when we received the money. So obviously, in your books, it will show a deficit.
A deficit, yes, because you're waiting this money to come.
You're waiting on money to come. So it had other areas where there was another area that we were out when they had the largest contingent of bands coming from Tobago, which came to 22. In that figure, 14 was in the semifinals and 8. We had to book hotels, pay for meals, pay for transport. What we did, as we get allocations, which was done in the past, we pay the bills for the hotels because hotels are waiting on you. So because it's carnival time, is the charging US rates and so on. So you have to pay up front. We can't tell our sister Isle people coming from Tobago that we ain't putting it in place, which we did.
But Mr. Diaz, that's one of the areas, because you mentioned that. Let's just be clear. From the festival, you had a shortfall from the Pan Festival. From the International Festival, you had another one, on average about $22 million we're talking about. And then you didn't receive your money for 2016 Panorama. That added to it, brought you close here. But you're making a point about the amount of bands out of Tobago. And the minister had complained that she has asked repeatedly for an explanation of the expenditure out of Tobago and not received it.
No, that's not true. That is not true. We wrote the Prime Minister on it. And he wrote us back and said, deal with the minister. And he then called for audit, which Panel Foster had the audit. I didn't bring it with me today. And we submitted an audited financial statement from Panel Foster, which gave the figure, the actual figure, of 2.7 million. We also had discussion with the THA, showing them the figure of the audited financial statement.
So you were saying that you have supplied that, and let me just be careful and rephrase.
Publicly.
It was reported that the minister, said she asked for these reports and not seen them. It was so reported, just to be clear on that. One of the things that's uncomfortable here is this playing out in the public arena of something that can be done behind closed doors, because it undermines the integrity not just of your organization, but even it puts in the public domain something that shouldn't be out there. Why has this not been something that is dealt with behind doors?
Well, let me just state clearly, publicly. The last time we met with the minister was August of 2016. Straight. August. We have written to her before all this thing went in the media and so on, that we would like to meet with you to have dialogue with you. She wrote back and said, when I'm ready, I will meet you. And as I speak of today, she have not met with us.
You are paraphrasing when you said, when I'm ready for all you, I will meet all you.
That's right.
Was that the language you got?
No.
Yeah, well, you're paraphrasing. I just want to be sure I'm trying to...
She said, when I'm ready to meet with you all in writing, I then will call you all.
Okay.
So she never met with us. She never... I tried to call on the phone. No response. So that is what was said. And I want to be clear.
Is it customary for you to meet with the minister or for you to meet with the PS?
No, well, if the minister so requests the permanent secretary, that she also asks us to talk with the permanent secretary, which we met with the permanent secretary, and it was a 3 hours meeting.
I'm trying to understand it because you said you wrote to the minister asking for audience, so I'm trying to understand how we got to that.
She is the line minister under the line which we fall under. She's the line minister in the Ministry of Culture, Community Development, Culture and the Arts. She is the line minister. So if we ask for a meeting, because so much things are banded about, the point you were making was that we should ask for dialogue with her, which we did. And we never received it. We spoke to the permanent secretary. We brought the permanent secretary up to date. I don't want to draw no public servant into this, but I'm saying we did. After the discussion with the permanent secretary, we still did write her. Even up to January, we wrote her. Up to now, we haven't received any response. So I have to make it quite clear to the public. What is that?
I got you. Right. I got you. You have been upfront with what you brought to us here regarding good bookkeeping practices. You also mentioned running into this $31 million deficit, and from our conversation this morning, it harkens back to 13-2014.
Yes.
And so is that the first appearance of a deficit for Pan Trinbago from that time, or were you running one
if you
before?
have an organization and you deal with business, I heard quite a number of people making points about Pan Trinbago is a cultural organization, first of all. And when we began, I remember, with the history, I want to go back there because Sidney Gallup said to me, he said, this is a cultural, they had a vision. Lennox Pierre, them give them the vision, and we continue over the years. So the vision was that we keep the cultural aspect of the steel band movement. Many governments have come, many governments have changed, but the steel band movement still stay. Many ministers have come and have gone. Many permanent secretaries have come and gone. The steel band movement stay. So we have maintained that responsibility through the years. Okay? So that's what we do. Repeat the question.
The question was if the deficit is a new advent or whether the organization has been running a deficit before 2013, and to what extent?
Yeah. What happened is that what we do, we came up with ideas to help ourselves, and I want to put the greens. There's green stock. When the greens started, you remember when they broke down the grants? I don't think you was here at the time.
No, but I read about it.
You read about it. Sure, but that's good. Yeah, Trinbago didn't keep up with it. And they marched and danced on the stage and they broke it down. And they had on the next where the car park is right now. And they built a small stand. We say, well, all right, this stand cannot hold the amount of people we could use facing the small stands. And there was a meeting with past President, Mr. Patrick Arnold, Mr. Melville Bryan, Mr. Richard Photo Secretary, Mr. Clarence Moore, who was the CEO of NCC at the time, and Miss Angela Fox. What had happened at that time? They said, well, what you call it, boy? And Mr. Moore said, call it the Greens. And that's how the name came about. There's a fellow called the Lewis Brothers who have appliance stores. They should be credited for helping with the Greens. The former vice president was nowhere. He wasn't even on the executive. He didn't have nothing. And that's how it came about. And after, when Mr. Peters came as minister, He said they will build back, the government will build back, the grandstand and all these things. And we'll say. So then society said, well, we had our Greens already, so let me go and do it. And he said he will do it. And that's how it came about.
The Greens were supposed to augment what the North Stand would offer with people congregating.
We recognized there was a space, which he said, and so on. He did certain works in terms of what he did to the Greens, but he also did some other things which I want to talk about. And that went on. You remember the scenario with the pool thing?
No.
Yeah, well, there was a pool that he had there. He told the executive there will be no payment. But the lady who put on the pool came to me months after and asked for payment and brought a document saying she wanted payment. That was passed. There are other things that related to the Greens that we received documents even up to just last year for payment. These things were done and came. So when he said, look, bring us an update, I never received a report from the Greens. That's one. Two, there are other reports that I asked the gentleman for, which he never submitted. He said, I asked Stibido, he's a customer officer, he ain't talking to no Stibido. So these derogatory terms, I said, look, listen to me, I think, and he went on the radio and said, so I said it now because he said it first. So I felt that as the president of Pan Trinbago, there are other things that we had prepared. So we said that we'll tender. There was no tender process in the early years of the Greens. And I want to state, NCC only helped us for the first year, that under Mr. Gayadeen. That is under the UNC government. They helped put for the payment of the certain things in the Greens.
Mr. President, let me hold you back for a moment because unless I missed something, I know you can bring me back up to speed. My inquiry was, at what point before 2013 you ran into a deficit? You brought the Greens as an example, but I missed the juxta between there and how it contributed to the deficit.
Well, the deficit started off in 2013, 2014, and it began to grow from there. So we tried to, as an organization, there were plenty of things which I don't want to say publicly because we have, when I took over, there were certain problems and there were deficits at that time.
Okay.
I did not discredit the former president because there are many challenges that the Steelman movement made. And I think if you have to go on, any organization in the world today, in countries, Trinidad and Tobago, you name it, have problems.
Of course.
Yes, of course. So we as an organization, not above that, but we have to continue. So we did that.
So it is fair to say, without criticizing anybody, you're saying that a deficit existed before you got there.
That's
you got
right.
there. You worked with that. It was exacerbated. Come into the area of 13 and 14 made it worse.
Yes.
Is that a good synopsis of where we are?
What happened? I will tell you a little history. We were in England in 2010. Mr. Richard Photo, Keith Sensi, and myself. And we went to the classical area. We were invited to the big hall in England.
I know to the Royal Albert, but maybe.
Royal Albert Hall. And a guy came out to us, a white guy, said he wants to do an international panorama. So we said, that's a good idea. We'll welcome that. And we came back home and I went to the executive and agreed from 2010 to try to do proposal on the International Conference on Panorama. And it's only happened in 2015. So we worked for all these years in preparing that. And that's what brought about the expenditure being up. But not people not checking how many things that did. As a cultural organization in the Caribbean, we are the most grassroots organization in the Caribbean. There's no other like us. We are the oldest, no other like us. And we are the first to put on an international conference on panorama, bringing people from Australia, Japan, from England, Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean to Trinidad and Tobago, who came, stayed in hotels, spent money, do things, the exchange and so on. No other organization did that. And we what little help we get for that? We spend money in Shogam and do all kind of things, and they spend millions of dollars. Nobody questioned that. This organization should be given a credit for that. And we did it. We put it on with a short deficit, right? So when we did these things, people knock us. But you know what had happened? When the Japanese went back to Japan, they came to Trinidad, the mecca of the steel band, and had a panorama which had come a fifth or sixth or something in the International Conference on Panorama. So we had people from Australia coming and speaking at the conference. That never happened nowhere else in the world. Trinidad and Tobago, it's recorded. We have it recorded on video. So children next 30, 40, 50 years could see it.
So it is true to say what you're saying to us this morning, Keith Diaz, President of Pan Trinbago. There are a lot of things done for the export, the improvement, and the spreading of the invention called Pan that the organization has been spending a lot of money for.
Yeah. And for that, I want to go into this area too. You're talking about finances. In a few years ago, more than 4 years ago, Tuna, Butch Kelman, and late Guppy, they were getting problems from drums from NP. The drums that they were making were drums for oil. And you would buy those drums because tuners were dying. And these tuners who were dying, they were looking at chemical drums. You had to put your head in the drum to tune it. So I wrote to NP asking them if they could improve on the product. And they wrote me back and said, well, come for the 3 drum making machines, we'll give it to Pan Trinbago.
It was dangerous for the tuners to go into the chemical drums. And
but
that's how
they were
came
making
about.
new drums in Trinidad, but there were little problems with it.
And how did you acquire that? The 3 machines that were given to you? They were given?
They were given as a gift to Pan Trinbago.
Okay.
And I want to thank the NB board at that time for that vision. We had to refurbish those machines. Refurbish them. And you know, when we were looking for a place to set up the machines, there were problems. You know what I called? A fellow they called Professor Brian Copeland. I have to give him kudos, credits. I said it once, twice. He received the highest award in our country, and I give him the highest kudos. And he said, Keith, come on board with us. And we had a place in Trin City, and that's where the machines are. We had to refurbish them. It cost a lot of money. You know what we did? We take his patented steel. I'm going to say this first time in Trinidad. And you see, we do something here and nobody's talking about it. And we sent it with a fella from the University of Trinidad and Tobago to United States. And when he got there, he said, who made this thing? They're surprised because it's a special steel. Because they have companies making pan out there. They're waiting to get that steel.
The patent for this is very important.
That's right. It's for the future. And we did it. We set up the machines. We imported the steel, 2 importation of steel. And we did that. We didn't borrow no money. It's the same money they're talking about that they're saying all kind of things about us in the seedbank movement.
So this
over $3 million.
The new pan that is available to people is a patent that is now owned. The drum is now owned by Pan Trinbago.
Yeah, the drum machine.
Because of the overtures of Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
So,
and you see, steel band is patented in 61 countries around the world. We now having plans with, I have to give Minister, what's her name, Minister Planning, Gopi Schoon, credit because I called her and asked her for her input into this is new initiatives for planning, for futuristic planning. And we went ahead and get that organized. And that is something that is called the Trinidad and Tobago Pan Instruments Limited.
You mentioned Ms. Gopi Schoon. Was that by chance, you sure it was Gopi Schoon? And not Regis? It was Gopi Schoon.
Gopi Schoon.
Okay, fine.
Sorry, not Regis. Regis is after,
okay,
but it was Gopi
Please
Schoon.
go ahead, yes.
I met with her. She said, go and do, what do you call it?
Feasibility.
And which you'll be prepared and so on. This is a serious thing. And we have been working with that. Nobody ain't talking about that, you know. That's good news. You don't get good news in Trinidad.
Well, you know, unfortunately, all over the world, Keith Diaz, much to the chagrin of those who run organizations, the good is never something celebrated. Only the questions. I want to take you to some of those questions because there are some of them we must answer. And like I said, whatever you can, you will give us the answer to it. It is Sunday, March 5th. It is currently 10:35. My guest is Keith Diaz, President of Pan Trinbago. And charges of mismanagement is what came to the fore. It came in many different forms. I want to get to the steel bandsmen talking about not being paid. Let's just deal with that first, and then I'll get to some of the charges made. Deal with the fact why steel bandsmen did not receive their money.
All right. I said before, the minister didn't pay the $5 million. It was paid on the 28th of October. Normally, these payments will be paid earlier on during carnival period.
Yes.
We never received it. Secondly, we paid out of the allocation to bring bands from Tobago to Trinidad. It was $2.7 million, which has all these statements. So we were out $7.7 million, right? 5.27. So the Panmen began to answer the money. The executive, when she gave the money, or the $5 million, we went to the bank. A decision that was made that we go to the bank and ask them to give us the facilities, which we have a very good rating in the bank. And to get that, I see people saying we have accounts with RBC,
Different banks.
different banks and so on, right? And we dealt with our bankers, which is
It doesn't matter. You dealt with your bank. There was
And
a promise of an accommodation.
they agreed to give us. So we had to get signal that we will get allocation of funds coming in. And, we don't want to make no big scene with government on the public issue that the minister pay for their bank to come home to pay. We paid it and we will get the money as it comes. But they didn't take that road. They went on a road like somebody, when you can remember when Christ was walking the road, you had a fella who take 30 pieces of silver to destroy Christ. Well, that is what started to happen. Destroy the organization.
That is a serious Judas statement that I want to
I'm
get to
telling you.
in a moment. But yes.
That happened. I didn't call nobody name, right? That is how dangerous these people are.
But one of the things that's stuck in the craw of most folks, while you're quite rightly so, there are many organizations that's juggling all the time. Accommodation is made, facilitation is made to give me an extended line of credit, whatever pending. However, what was really ugly is that checks were given to Panmen who had to go to the bank and they could not cash it. That is where the ugliness came. Explain that for me.
We had gotten approval for the bank. I see it just chucking you, but it's all right. We had gotten approval from the bank. And there was a little glitch. Tobago, we had to send across checks to Tobago. But the treasurers have given the instruction for the checks to go out the day before. But she said not to give it out until we get the final loan and sign. When you sign for a loan agreement on the dotted line at the bank, then the process is done. I don't want to talk about any banking process, right? But there's a process. But they went in the bank before with the check. And the day they didn't get approval for the check, they went to thing with the worldwide with it. And this is what transpired. So we do apologize for that.
Okay.
But the Panmen were paid. They were paid, right?
It was a case of misunderstanding. I know that that release
But
came.
I just want to clear the point. Again, the accounts for the 1st of July 2016 to the 30th of June 2017 will show something different. It will show a difference. Now, there's something that's right now, Pan Trinbago and the NCC are in court. They are very careful and not going into certain areas. And there are some things that people perception. NCC didn't give us money to see about the greens. We had to pay everything. We had to pay for everything to put on the greens. Also, what we did, we had a tender process then for 2016. But people get mad because they was in charge and they could, I don't know. But when they were in charge, you ever hear of a blight a company? SIS as a company get a blight. Junior Sammy get a blight. And other people had to pay. But how come them get a blight? Well, I don't know. Right? But they get a blight.
Yeah, that is.
And I'm saying so very straight. Right? They get a blight. Something is wrong somewhere. Right? I wasn't in charge of it. I'm the president. I have to take the responsibility.
But that impacted on the funds that you in fact either received or had to pay out. And the reason I was getting the choke, as you call it, a moment ago is because the time is running on me and there's so many issues we have to run on. The charges of mismanagement of funds been levied against the organization. You and your inner circle has been named directly by your former vice president. At this stage, I know it is before the court, as I advised listeners before. I'm aware that there are certain parameters you cannot go beyond. But would an allegation of possible mismanagement be better suited than fraud, or are the charges outrightly incorrect?
Well, if I don't want to go too much because one of the things that we have is that we have a court matter and there are other things pending. And I don't want to talk or anything. I just want to clear the air on a few things. One, the organization had agreed for a vehicle for the president of Pan Trinbago.
Okay.
One vehicle. Right?
This is what we had in the report as a BMW X5.
Right. One vehicle we had agreed upon. That's as far as I'm going to say because the matter will be somewhere else.
Understood.
I want to tell you my personal thinking. I don't like a certain type of vehicle. One of them is the Audi. I don't like them. It's not my choice. So I don't know whoever get that. And then the vehicle is not for Kid Diaz. Kid Diaz is the president. The vehicle for the president.
Yeah, because many people argue, and I'm glad to hear you say you don't like the Beamer, neither do I. A lot of people argue that at a very difficult financial stage of the organization's life, why would someone think in terms of using a Beamer, an X5?
Well, sir, if you have an organization and you're running, Well, as I said before, some people want to see it. You know, you have a prefect. The president of Pan Trinbago driving a prefect going on the road. He must live in an old house and somewhere in some corner and so on. And somebody, well, I don't want to elaborate too much because I'm going personally. My name was tarnished in the media, right? Nobody understand how hard I work, right? And I do my things. I have legal documents where I can take care of that.
All right.
So I don't want to go down that road. I want to talk about the other things inside of the organization. When we pay over 28 people we bury within the last year, we help Panmen. I don't want to call their names, including some of them. We help bring the body of one of the presidents who died that year before, was Pushet. That cost over $100,000. We help other operations when steel band leaders got ill. They go in St. Clair Medical, they say they have no money. We write a check and pay the bill. We help our elders who in the time when they was only getting $2 and $5 that they ill in, they would come to the office, they want help, and we would help them medically and otherwise. But it is there in the accounts, you know, and people are not talking about that. I didn't want to say anything, you know, you don't go and say, well, I help him because he was sick and I help him because he was there. We don't do that.
You have been very candid here this morning, and I don't want to minimize my appreciation for that. There is staying just specifically because your organization is doing what folks, and in some cases maybe beyond, as you just mentioned, what an organization should do, which is to be applauded. There is the question, however, as to the prudence, as to the counsel in getting a vehicle that expensive at a tough time. That is the issue, and of course,
that was not a new vehicle, sir.
It was not a new vehicle, but it was, however, an expensive vehicle.
It was not a new vehicle.
All right.
I tell you, you want to go down another area? Please. That is, I don't want to talk about it.
Because essentially it was just to bring that to the fore, and we can go into some other areas. That's as far as the money part is concerned. We're going to hear about that. You explained why the Panmen had the problem with cashing their checks. We mentioned the decision of the executive to purchase a vehicle. We've done that. Let's go into something that the NCC chairman, who was with me earlier this week on Brunch, Mr. Kennedy Silva, spoke about. He spoke in terms that he would like to see this thing of Panorama moved along in such a way that two things happen. One is that we have less than 58 bands in one day of Panorama, and that we have the big bands participate in a finals at the Savannah. I remember you called in after that, and you were very disquieted by the idea of only using large steel bands. Go ahead and respond.
Let me tell you something. In our country, that was led by our forefathers, our past presidents of the Steel Band Association. Pan Trinbago is an organization where steel bands are represented with 2 members according to our constitution. And when they come to a meeting, which we start as early as March, you see, we're going to have a meeting before the end of this month to discuss Panorama for the next year. In our organization, we have single pan bands, small bands, medium bands, and large bands. You have 60 single bands, 65 small, 28 medium, and 15 large. In our meeting, the small bands got up and said, Mr. President, we have 65 bands. What are they doing? We had how much band? 20 bands out of 65. That's unfair. And they were very vociferous in their statements towards us. We then said, all right, let us sit down and look at it. So members said, give us half now, in a meeting. That's one point. So that's how the 30 bands came. You have 14 coming forward from the medium, and all 15 from the large, because how you take out this 14 supposed to go forward. There are 15 bands. So you bring all 15 and, you know. And that is how it started. Further to that, we have in the small band category, across the country, in our country, Trinidad and Tobago, 90% of the youths are there. You look at Point Forte, Siparia, Labre, you come South Central Trinidad, East Trinidad, La Hoqueta. The band who won the small band is La Hoqueta Pan Groove. They were singer pan. They called a name which I don't want to use, and is a lot of problem with crime. I went and spoke sometime last year, they had a youth forum where they invited young people. And they have a lot of young people, some of them 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It's better they come in our pan and let us play pan. And Mr. Robinson said, Diaz, we go fix them. They come and won the small band. What to do with them children and them when they want to play? The big stage in Trinidad and Tobago is the Savannah on a Sunday. Our show mustn't be watered down and say 3 hours. I hear they talking about why they don't talk about the jazz festival in New Orleans to change it. Why they don't talk about Woodstock to change it. These are great things. This is Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. Right now, what kind of talks we having for next year? The carnival is going down. We said, let us talk. Nobody want to talk to us.
Well, it's encouraging because the minister made a comment yesterday on the issue of the different interests that are represented on NCC, but she's not seen a cohesive result coming out. So she's disposed to opening the conversation. Hopefully, some of the points you're raising there will come on. I get the point you make that in order to, if you want to reduce the number of bands participating in the panorama, you're going to deprive the big stage to a number of these kids who could otherwise get involved in unsavory things, and Pan provides an avenue for them and the furtherance of the culture. I'm pretty clear on that. But do you think it does the steel band any good as far as the listeners are concerned?
Yes, it does the steel band.
That period of time.
And I want to say this to the small man. I am very proud to say, when I went to San Fernando, we didn't say for them to be in the finals. No, we changed up the thing. We made changes. We put the single pan in the east. So that the people in the east can have a final. We put the small bands in the south. And I want to commend the south mayor. The South mayor came early. He said, thanks for bringing a final in San Fernando. This is Trinidad and Tobago. So we have the small band finals there. But the semi-finals, is, the stage is for ones who go in there. We will have to make adjustments, but I will have a meeting for the Panmen to make some kind of input. You see, we can't go with a big stick and say, oh no, we want the band. They have to have an input. They talk to us. We are consultation, that is the word. I like the word you said. But further than that, when we do these things, our culture, our panorama started in 1963. And all the bands were there. Here were the prizes were teacup and saucer, a case of rum. It was about $1,000 was the first prize. And it went on with all prizes from there to Adam Smith to different people. And we built something. Panama used to put a basket long ago, put the basket, put a big thing. Nobody in block, nobody would make big cooler coming inside. It's a line.
Am I correct in saying then that you're saying it's a national festival? It is going to take all day, but it's quite okay because everybody is included in it, essentially is what
That's
you're saying.
Right.
I want to go down to the question of why I don't have a top band like the champions, all-stars in Dimash Gras. Dimash Gras is the creme de la creme. I cannot understand why I don't have a king and queen of carnival and I don't have the champion steel band. Why?
Well, let me explain something. I want to be Pan Trinbago in the years that I'm sitting on the commissioner. And we do not make, they find a person to put on the Dimash Gras. Within Dimash Gras, through the years, we have moved away and have Panama finals on the Saturday.
Right.
So, Tuco now, who is the Calypsonian, we say we're fighting down Tuco because the Calypsonians have to express themselves. It's our culture. So, if they want that steel band, they get one. If they want that thing, we work with that. But they employ somebody, that is a show run by the NCC.
Right, and they had a producer this year, Ian will show that.
Oh, boy. I don't want to comment on that because I wasn't part of the decision making.
But the inference there is that therein lies the problem.
Yeah, well, I'll be very careful with words when I talk about the NCC. I sit on the commission, so I have to be careful with words.
You, like the representative of Tuco, like the representative of the masqueraders, they are all seat holders of in this commission, in addition to a number of them appointed by the line minister. Yes,
you see, I heard the line minister talking because I went to the forum with Dr. Susan Berg. And in that forum, I listened to Keith Nurse. I was looking for my paper where I had how much money this country makes, $348.8 million from Carnival days, 9 days before Carnival. I should check the papers and see it. Dr. Keith Nurse in the forum said Trinidad and Tobago make for $100 million in Carnival. You'll check that. What the Steelman movement getting? They have no problem in organizing. I am not say, done with mass band. That's an important part of carnival in our country. That helps boost the people to come into the country. They love that. We attract a lot of visitors.
All components of this big celebration.
So we decided to say, listen, Juve morning, the bomb, Carnival Monday night. So people could come still, and in 48 hours, you could do what you want. But you're not having no discussion as to what happened with this team. I remember a year, walking on Carnival Monday, a woman said, I came to this country, I could go to Rio, but where are the cans? Where are the pans? No pan, because there's no money.
So you say
a band has to get insurance, a tractor, a trailer, nobody pushing pan no more, to come on the road. And they have to get some sort of incentive. No incentive is being given. No dialogue is being spoken.
So you're saying that when they are planning the March Gras, you have not been asked for an input into the composition of this.
No.
That's part of the thing that has to be corrected there. I've got only 5 minutes again, and again, there's so much to discuss with the Pan Trinbago President, Keith Diaz, here this morning. I want to ask you about a statement made by Michael Joseph, who is your PRO, and he referred to it as Camboulet versus Mardi Gras. The inference from, not inference rather, but I did press him when he was here, and the statement is that there are elements with vested interests that would like to take away the running of the national steel instrument, who would like to take away Pan Trinbago. Well, you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, well, I want to tell you this. As I mentioned before, one of the things we've seen is the area of the factory. That's one. That is a multi-million-dollar factory. I said that Pan have more money than oil. What we have in right now, Guyana getting how much? $5 billion to explore oil. Trinidad have the exploration of oil. They have oil in the East-West corridor, in the northeast coast of the country. What do we have in Trinidad to bring the money to boost investment? We went ahead and started. Instead of, I have to commend Gopi Kuhn for her initiative. They come and talk to us and tell us, this is the initiative, but they have somebody waiting in the back to see if they could capture the thing. That's one of the areas. 2, they want to have a show. Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, Kaiso, Saturday they're going down south. Everybody pull their basket, they pay out, and everybody, local food. And you go down and you say, I walk with my toilet people and all. That is part of our culture. They go in Panorama the next day. So this part of our culture. I want to bring up a new thing. Panorama will be 3 hours. So sit down after 3 hours, it's done. That is not the thing. Trinidad and Tobago have a specialty. Kaiso, Panorama. That is our show. We have engineered Panorama in Grenada, St. Vincent, Antigua, Miami, New York, England, Canada, Maine. In these countries, it comes from our people.
Let me just cross you there, because you bring a very interesting perspective here this morning. Whereas many people, you say, are asking to have a show that go a certain amount of hours, you're saying it is a national experience that should not be locked into time.
Yeah, well, when the Japanese came here, and they we came to Panorama.
Yes.
We came to Panorama. They're so glad to play on the stage. So we must deny our young people in a small band. We come from the country not to play Pan in Panorama on the stage.
So you do concur with your PRO that there are elements who would like to take the Camboulet and put it in the hands of those who want to propagate the Mardi Gras.
I agree strongly with that.
I think we covered a lot of areas here this morning. We moved from what you're doing for Pan, your organization, including what is not strictly Pan, i.e. seeing about families of those who depart and so on. You've made that clear.
I just want to elaborate something. You see, the Groovy Soca competition, there were steel band people who were doing Groovy Soca. And I wanted to give some young arrangers, it have Clive Telemark here, they started to do, it had a young singer sing in from Laventille. And they started to do songs. Now, when you do the Groovy Soca songs, that is where the young people are being attracted to. So we felt that when we couldn't get money from sponsors, we approached the former Prime Minister and we got funding for the Groovy Soca competition. The last one we got was $800,000, which we gave each region $200,000. Not in Pan Trinbago Executive. The Tobago region got it, East got it, South got it, and North. You know what happened? There's the most amount of bands that participated in that throughout our country on Carnival month. Even Tobago, that had never came on the Esplanade. This is the things that we're talking about.
Using the groovy soca vehicle to get the young people more involved.
To get more involved in the music of our artists. Let them hear the music. And this is what was happening. And we're talking negative all the time. Nobody ain't talking no positive.
Keith Diaz, you're no stranger to radio, so you know when I'm up against the clock, I'm up against the clock. But they are you said, just briefly, if you can, you have no fear of the forensic audit that is coming. That's no fear from your side on this.
I just want to make a comment here. I was looking for my paper where let me tell you something. Forensic audit. There's a difference from financial statements. If you have a management letter, so and so, we have audited financial statements by a reputable, professional auditing firm. Right? Pan Trinbago position on Pan Trinbago is prepared to facilitate any such audit on public funds once properly engaged by the appropriate body. However, Pan Trinbago also expects that a similar audit will be undertaken to other things that they have in Trinidad, which is they're coming down on the interest groups. Them money for Pan, Kaiso, and they're going behind them, but they ain't going behind other things. And Pan Trinbago will vigorously protect its brands and its stakeholders during such a process. We are not opposed to it. And
if you're going to put me under scrutiny, you were saying put other people under scrutiny.
That's right.
Keith Diaz, President Pan Trinbago, thank you so much for taking the time to come in this morning. I don't think you hedged on any of the questions I asked of you. You did, as we stated to our listeners early, there are some areas we couldn't go into, but we did at least tap on the door. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
I want to thank you for constructive journalism, because I look at a lot of people around the world. My TV is always on Sirius, BBC, other areas, and I think I have to commend you today of professionalism as a journalist and a show. I listen to the show on the station, and although I work with another frequency, but I still do listen to what you have to say, especially in the morning when you are making comments.
I'm appreciative, man. I'm appreciative. What we try to do here in Brunch is to do context. We don't do gotcha radio. We're not here to slam anybody against the wall with what we believe. We say these are the facts. This is the information outside. We're throwing it at you. Now you heard the public truth. Let me hear your truth, and let the public decide on that.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Anytime. I always respond to your call.